My name is Todd Leabo. I work at Sports Radio 810 WHB. I have since 1998, so a long time, ever since we began the radio station. And I am a product of the independent schools. I went to Hanthorne Elementary, which is no longer an elementary school, and Bridger Junior High and Truman High School. And my day-to-day stuff at work is we talk about sports on the radio, and my official title is the Vice President of Sports Operations, which doesn't mean a whole lot other than we kind of work as a team and everyone does whatever they can to pitch in to make sure we get something on the radio that's worth having on the radio every single day.
All right, great. Okie dokie. We'll just go right into it. So my first question is, how did you get to where you are now in your career?
Well, some good fortune is always the case, and also hard work, because those go hand in hand. I went to it's kind of who you meet in this business, and probably in every business. So I was an intern at a couple of different places when I was in college. And one of my internships I had was at what was then Channel 4. It wasn't Fox 4 back then. It was called News Channel 4. But I met people in the sports department there when I was an intern, and eventually was able to get a job there about 2 years after I graduated from college, because I wanted to work in Kansas City. I didn't really want to leave town. Generally, the way it works in this field is if you want to live in some place like Kansas City, you probably have to go to some small town first and kind of work your way back up. So I went kind of the opposite way. I worked for free, which is not always great, but if your parents let you stay at your house, it'll work. So I worked for free for a while and eventually got some part-time work. And then it was fortunate enough to get a full-time job there. After a while, I realized that TV wasn't exactly for me, because it's pretty much crazier hours. Thanksgiving's just a Thursday. Christmas is just the 25th of December. People still work on all those days. And I was young and married and going to have a kid, and I wanted to get something more regular. So I got out of the business entirely for about 2 years. And then I got pulled back in because the people I knew at Fox 4 were starting this radio station, and they pulled me back in, and I've never looked back.
Awesome. All right. In thinking about your daily work, what is your favorite part of your job? And is there
I think the favorite part is creating something every day. All of our shows, we have shows that start locally at 6 a.m. and they go till at least 6 p.m, sometimes more like 10 or 11, or after a Chiefs game on a Monday night, it could be 1 a.m. And we get to do something different every single day. Sometimes it seems like you're repeating it, because in the summer, the Royals play a baseball game, you talk about it the next day, then you talk about the one that's coming up. You know what I mean? It's a little bit like that, but it is something different every single day. You get to make something. And the weird part is, back in the day, it just went off into the ether and it was gone. But now we podcast the shows, so you can go back and people could listen to something that happened 2 Wednesdays ago or whatever. But we do get to make something new every day, and we get to be right on the front lines of sports in Kansas City, which are a really big deal. People love the Royals and Chiefs, sporting Kansas City, and all the college teams, and we get to be a part of that. So that's the fun part. Is it's not really work, because it's sports, and sports is kind of like the candy shop of life. So if you get to work in the candy shop every day, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Is there a part that you would say is not as enjoyable about your job?
Well, sometimes the gift of getting to make something every day can be a burden as well, because sometimes there's nothing going on. And even if there's nothing happening, like 2 summers ago when the pandemic was in full swing and there were no sports to talk about, we still had to start at 6 a.m. and do a radio show till 10, and then one from 10 to 2, and then one from 2 to 6. And there was nothing to talk about sports. I mean, there was a little bit of stuff because it kind of crossed over some of the things on what policies are going to be in place, when are they going to come back to play, but it wasn't very fun when you had to do that. So if the Royals are 25 games out of first place and it's June 25th and the Chiefs aren't having practice, you still got to fill 12 hours of radio every day. And that can be a little bit of a burden. And the other side that's maybe can be not quite as much fun is when you're a fan of a team, you get to just love the players because they wear the uniform And then if you work to where you interview them or find out things that maybe aren't the greatest about them, that's not very much fun to find out that like when you were a kid, your heroes maybe aren't the nicest people in the world, but you get over that after a while.
All right. What was the very first job you ever had, and what did you learn from that experience?
Well, the first job I ever had was when I was in high school. I was a food vendor at Royals and Chiefs games. And this is probably going to fall on deaf ears with kids today, but you actually learned how to make change because there were no credit cards. It was actual cash. You learned how to be responsible for the cash. You learned how to dodge getting hit with baseballs, hit in the stands, stuff like that. And you learned how to interact with people and, sell them a bag of peanuts or an ice cold Coca-Cola or whatever. But you learned the responsibility of having to get yourself to work on time, be accountable for all the money you had in your hand at the end of the night because you had to turn in every single night. And you had to, if you made a change mistake and you gave someone too much money, then you just gave your own money away. So it's a real lesson to learn for sure. But my first job in my field was being a sports producer at Channel 4. And you just learn to work with so many different kinds of people: photographers, engineers, producers, news producers, companies you had to call with satellite times to buy satellite times, getting credentials from other teams. You just had to learn. That was a much more professional type job, but certainly being a food vendor made you learn how to deal with the public. And for me, it was just a good way to go watch baseball games.
Yeah. What did your educational pathway look like?
Well, I went to, as I said, the independent school district, and it's so much more hands-on now. We didn't have, there wasn't any video production classes or, radio stations or TV stations or any of those things in high school. There was journalism that, class where you made a newspaper. But when I went to school, that's why I wanted to get into television, really. So, and I wanted to get into sports. So I went to the University of Oklahoma because they had really good sports, and I wanted to watch sports and get involved with that. So the second you get down there, you start getting into whatever you can class-wise. And that stuff has changed so much too, because technology's changed. But I made sure that I got a job at the student radio station where I had to wake up at 6 a.m. on Fridays and go in and read 2-minute sports centers, which wasn't much fun after a Thursday night in a college town, but you did it. And then you had to, start looking for internships as soon as I could. So I had an internship at a TV station and I had an internship at a radio station. So you just have to meet people and, decide what you want to do with your life and have a goal towards it. And that's what every time you meet someone, and it's really hard for young people, especially in high school, but even when you get up to, 20 years old, 21 years old in college, you can be really intimidated when you're dealing with someone who's maybe twice your age in the field. But you just have to have confidence and talk to them, because people are willing to help. We've had a lot of people who are interns at our radio station who we've helped get in the field, but many more who have gotten in the field and decided it's maybe not for them because the job's not for everybody. We help them get jobs somewhere else. So you just really have to be personable in whatever field you're in, especially this one though, because there are so few jobs. It's not, there are lots of jobs out there in other fields, but if you think about the number of people who talk or write about sports in a city like Kansas City, it's a very small number. So you have to be personable and nice and work hard. And the answer is always yes. Can you do this? Can you come in here on this time at this day? The answer is yes. It's not no, because no is not going to get you very far in this business.
Yeah. All right. That's awesome. What would you say is your definition of success?
Well, the definition of success is being happy with what you do for a living, and kind of how much money you make doing it. And those things can vary, right? If you really, really, really love your job and you don't make nearly as much money as like some friends. When I was in school, I had, friends in college. Some of my best friends, they got out of school and they were like electrical engineer and computer science majors, and they were making way more money than I was, but I was fine with that because I was working in what exactly I wanted to do. Now, maybe if I really wanted to be a computer scientist or an electrical engineer, I'd have been happy too. But if you can have enough happiness in your job and you can have enough happiness with making enough money to live your life, then I think that's success in the field. And, of course, making sure that people around you like you and respect what you do. You know what I mean? I think that's an important part of success. There are plenty of successful people who make a lot of money and are famous or whatever, and everyone thinks they're jerks. That's not super successful to me.
Yeah. All right. I like that answer. What can students do now to help them prepare to get a job in this field in the future?
Well, what you can certainly do, I mean, we work in radio, but radio is more than just radio now. It's AM radio. Some cars don't even have AM radio anymore, right? If you go buy a new Tesla and it's got a little screen up on it, there's no AM radio on it. So AM radio is more than just radio. We do video production on our Facebook page and our website and Twitter. So learn whatever you can about videos and how to make those, whether it's with your phone or a camera, whatever program, audio production, as far as, you can make commercials or just learn to use any of the free audio programs that are out there to make things sound nice. And things like that are important because, if you'd have told me when I was in college that radio, I'm going to have to do a video for radio, which I do on a weekly basis. We put videos together with sponsors and all this. I'd have thought you were crazy because I was like, there's not going to be video on a radio station. But you just have to kind of look out there and be ahead of whatever's next. A newspaper is not just a newspaper anymore. A TV station is not just a TV station. A radio station is not just a radio station. They all have other elements to them that are outside of it. A lot of that's social media. So as a high school kid, you can learn how to do all that stuff. There's, traditional college is great, but we have kids who, barely have gone to Johnson County Community College, way more about video production than people who've worked in the field for years and years. That stuff can be learned really at home, So those are certainly things that I would work on if I was a kid. If I wanted to get in any sort of journalism, you'd be able to do it all. And don't be scared and don't think, well, I'm just going to talk about sports or I'm just going to read the news on the air. You better be able to do every single bit of it now.
Yeah.